Good morning, everyone. Polling, and I've done a show on this previously. I've gone through and looked at past polls, but I think an update is required with new information. And well, I'm going to go back to 2015, and this is American politics, but the same structure is in play and has been in play for a long time. Here's the tweet. It's Charlie Kirk, and he says, quote, "In June 2015, Jeb Bush was polling at 22. Donald Trump was polling at 1%. In June 1983, Ronald Reagan was polling at 39%. His opponent, Walter Mondale, was polling at 49%. Reagan won 49 states in 1984. The media thinks you're stupid. Don't believe the suppression polls." And, well, the reality of that is true. Here's another one. The day before the 2016 U.S. presidential election, most pollsters and statistical models had pegged Hillary Clinton's chances of winning at greater than 90%. Right? 90%. Hillary Clinton was going to be the next president. They printed the newspaper articles ahead of time. It's incredible, really. Here's a poll that talks about the Liberals being completely unhurt by Justin Trudeau breaking ethics laws for the 5th time and being found, well, ethically responsible for breaking these laws. He did it. And yeah, completely unhurt for Mr. Trudeau. Unbelievable. But let's go back in time. Let's forget about the American polls and forget about Justin Trudeau's seemingly bulletproof poll numbers and have a look at what Ontario went through in the provinces in the last year. Going back to May 10th of 2018, the election was June 6th, and it says 2 ways Andrea Horwath could become Ontario's premier. And they're talking about how the NDP could eke out a minority government, right? Here is Global News saying NDP tied with the PCs as Ford's Tories tumble in Ontario election. Ipsos poll. If an election were held tomorrow, 37% of Ontarians would have voted NDP. 37% is a strong majority. Like, I think that Trudeau won with 39% or something like that in 2015, and that was a strong majority. That was a very strong majority, and still is. Well, I mean, not that Parliament is dissolved, but the way it was when Parliament was dissolved, that was a strong majority. And so, how did that end up? Well, here's another one. Here's Maclean saying the Maclean's Polera Ontario election poll, the NDP lead keeps growing. It keeps growing. June 6th, this is less than a week to election day, right? And, well, this was May 29th. June 6th is election day. And look at that little bloop. NDP at 43%, PC at 32%. How could they possibly fix that? That's a massive deficit, 8 points. Holy cow. And here's the results. An overwhelming majority for the PCs. Overwhelming majority. Like, absolutely no basis in reality for those headlines. None. How about New Brunswick? New Brunswick had, Alberta. Forget New Brunswick. We'll do New Brunswick in a minute. Here's Alberta. NDP bridging the gap, but not enough as Alberta election campaign draws to a close. They're admitting that Notley couldn't win in Alberta. So at least there's that. And here's Jason Kenney's 63 seats to Notley's 24. They trounced her, and in Alberta, there weren't a lot of articles speculating about an NDP win, but it's clearly cheering them on. You know, NDP bridging the gap, but come on, guys, it's not enough. Oh man, Alberta election's gonna draw to a close. So it's interesting, the editorialization in the news, right? They're rooting for the NDP. Now let's talk about New Brunswick, yes, this is New Brunswick. And this was September 14th, September 24th, I believe, was the election day in New Brunswick. And here's the poll tracker. Liberals at 38%. PCs, Progressive Conservatives, at 32%. I believe this is People's Party, but not the Bernier-led People's Party. It's a provincial, and it stands on its own, as far as I understand it. And the Green at roughly 10%. And, well, where did that end up? A PC minority with the People's Party propping them up. So that's interesting, right? I mean, very razor thin, but certainly not what the polls were projecting. Not by a lot. Like, this is projecting a majority, cruising to a majority. I mean, there are clearly some tight ridings in this one, but I don't know how you would arrive at those numbers when the vote turned out that close, right? It's very interesting. And here is PEI, the last province we'll really take a deep dive and look at. This one was projecting a Green majority. So this was in April 17, and they say Greens are at 35%, Progressive Conservative 32%. Okay, and then on April 18, a week later, right? This was the 13th. I want to make sure 17th. Okay, the next day. I thought it was a week later. April 17th, 35. April 18th, 40. Okay, and the Conservatives have dropped 3 more points. But there's been zero movement for the People's Party in a year, right? Isn't that unbelievable? Isn't that unbelievable? Here's the results of PEI, and I couldn't find a poll tracker that's the CBC poll tracker for the PEI election. I couldn't find it. So regardless, here's the PC's got 12 seats, the Greens got 9 seats, and Liberals got 5 seats. Not the 40% that they were projecting. This is the news trying to push what they want. And I mean, they convince some people, and maybe the Greens are that good to be the opposition, but it's certainly not a majority, and it's certainly not 40%, because if they had 40%, they'd have more seats. So how do the polls figure it out? And again, here's the Liberals unhurt. I was going to make a point, and I just duplicated the slide, but I was going to make a point that it doesn't matter what Trudeau does, his numbers keep going up. In my riding, the Liberals at 40%. 40%. Here's the Ipsos first poll since Trudeau found to have broken conflict of interest laws. 33%, and no movement on the People's Party, no movement on the Greens, no movement on NDP. Very interesting, right? It is incredible what happens when the polls are shaped. Here's a September 3rd poll. The People's Party of Canada was officially created on September 14th, 2018. Maxime Bernier officially left the Conservative Party and stated he would be starting his own party August 23rd, I think. Maybe it was August 18th. And between August 18th and September 3rd, 17% of Canadians said that they were open to voting for a Conservative Party led by Maxime Bernier, according to Nanos. And I've showed slides of this before. I've got slides, but evidently I didn't set that one up. So I apologize for not having that slide ready. But 17% of people, the second Mr. Bernier said, I'm going to start my own party, were very, very interested in Mr. Bernier's party. And yet, the People's Party has remained steady between 1% and 3% for a year. Despite the fact that we have EDAs across the country, despite the fact that we have 320, I believe, out of 338 candidates, despite all that, 1%? The Green Party just was able to get the EDAs across the country reliably. In 2015, they didn't have EDAs across the country. They had 270 odd. Really? Look it up. And they had 6 or 7% back in 2015. So 1%? It doesn't bear out to me. Not even a little bit. Here is JP Lucy, and it says, the main argument used to exclude Maxime Bernier from the debates is the fact that its poll numbers are purportedly low. Yet the People's Party of Canada is not listed alongside the other federal parties in this Angus Reid poll from a few days ago. Seems kind of fishy, right? This was August 28th, 2019. The writ dropped September 11th. Here's the poll. It says, in this upcoming federal election, which party candidate are you most likely to support? They've got the Bloc Québécois, but they don't have the People's Party listed. It says Bloc, Conservative Party of Canada, Liberal Party of Canada, New Democratic Party of Canada, Green Party of Canada, Other Party, Undecided, Don't Know, Rather Not Say, Will Not Vote. Not listed. Angus Reid responds, August 29th, it says, People's Party, we're not including in our main vote question because we don't know how many candidates they will be fielding in the October election. Once we know where they have candidates, we'll include for those ridings. Now we break them out in Other with a follow-up question. And then Mr. Bernier tweeted that out, and there was a lot of backlash, and Angus Reid said, oh, People's Party, thanks for the feedback, folks. We will now be including them on our vote question. I had not realized they were fielding candidates everywhere. My miss, but they will be on the list going forward. We did explicitly examine favorability of Max. It's in our release. So once they couldn't hide it anymore in Other, they just stopped polling for it. Here's Lori Martin, and this is a small example, but there have been a bunch of people reporting similar things across Twitter. She says, quote, this is September 15th, 2019. 1, interesting. A new Angus Reid poll came into my inbox at 2:08 p.m. I answered the first question, which is always about ethnicity, and was promptly told they had an overwhelming response to the survey, and it was closed. That was at 2:20. Really? Was my ethnicity wrong? Number 2, last week in an Angus Reid poll, I got past the ethnicity question. The next was asking which party I would be voting for. Upon answering, I was told the rest of the poll did not apply to me. Interesting, right? Isn't that weird? Here's Dale Klein, and he says, in Max Bernier's riding, the PPC is listed as other in this poll report, so poll results show Max shouldn't be in leadership race. Corruption. And here's the breakdown, right? Riding boasts. Conservative, New Democrat 0, Liberal 18, Conservative 35, New Democrat 18, Conservative 35, New Democrat 0, Liberal 18, Bloc 5, and other 36%. Other. Yeah, I wonder who that is. And here is after the debate, and I went looking for this chart and I couldn't find this chart. It was difficult to find on Twitter. In fact, impossible to find on Twitter. There were no results. And on Google, they showed other results with the Bloc Québécois leader surging, but not anybody else. It was Bloc Québécois versus a couple of other people, but maybe Liberal, I'm not sure. But this is clearly, the purple line is the People's Party of Canada, and it's clearly a higher search result than everyone else, right? Isn't that interesting? Suppression polls, higher search results. Here's a similar one broken down by province, and I think the time frame is shorter. This is 5:04 p.m. to 9 p.m. it looks like. So interesting, right? Here's a Twitter poll, and I was gonna have a whole bunch of these because a bunch of them the PPC are winning. This one the Conservatives are winning, but it's notable because the NDP and the Liberals are not cracking 5% together, right? This whole everybody's marching towards zero free speech. It's not playing well, right? And I've long said this election is between the PPC and the Conservatives, riding by riding. And there are places in Ontario where the Conservatives are just not viable. So it's Liberal, and people are looking at PPC because they look at Liberals, they see Greens, NDP, and Justin Trudeau saying, well, being hypocritical from the top of their gilded Rolex watch wearing, trust fund owning selves, that everyone is racist and that everyone should do better while, wearing blackface and speaking about Khalistani separatism at Khalistani separatist rallies. I mean, all of this is incredible because it's happening in real life, and nobody seems to care. Here's the last bit of evidence that maybe the polls are cooked. Maybe the polls are completely wrong. Maybe the polls are paid for by a similar cash injection to that the media gets, right? But we don't know about it because it's hidden in who knows what. I don't know. I can't explain why the polls are doing what they're doing. I can only say they've been wrong a bunch of times. Really wrong. Wrong enough to say, were you cheerleading for the other team? And are you upset that your team lost? The press? Everyone? Right? Here's the last bit of evidence. I just went to the CBC News video feed and I searched scrum. And this is a Reddit post saying, have you guys seen the stats on these scrums? And I looked at it and I thought that can't be true. And yeah, it's true. It's really true. Here is Justin Trudeau's post-scrum debate, 25,000 views. Andrew Scheer's full post-debate scrum, 71,000 views. Jagmeet Singh's full post-debate scrum, 47,000 views. Maxime Bernier's full post-debate scrum, 81,000 views. Elizabeth May's full post-debate scrum, 8.3 thousand views. Yves Francois Blanchette's full post-debate scrum, and I'm including it just because it's here, 7.5 thousand views. Who's the clear winner? I think it's obvious. I think it's as obvious as these graphs. I think that these polls are doing nothing but to muddy the water and hide the popularity of this party. And I think that I think that is not much of a stretch. Now, I don't have proof. There's nothing ironclad here, right? Who knows why people are being eliminated once they answer the ethnicity question? I don't know. Who knows why Angus Reid decided not to poll Maxime Bernier? I don't know. I don't have any answers for you there. But it seems odd in our democracy to have a press that's willing to publish articles cheerleading for their favorites and saying, oh, shucks, those Conservatives won. It's interesting to note that in the press, consistently, the Conservatives are much lower than they actually, they poll and do much worse. They poll much lower than they actually do in real life when the vote is cast. Consistently, across the board, every province. Andrea Horwath is going to pull out a minority against Doug Ford? Nuh-uh. Not even a little tiny bit. And that's the reason that I got into doing Ontario Poly in the first place, because Andrea Horwath was walking around telling people that a sanctuary province didn't really mean anything. It means something, Andrea. The words mean something very clearly. Just look in the United States, what's happening in sanctuary cities there. Goodness me. I felt like I was going back in time there for a minute. But the polls do not reflect the reality of our situation. So if you're relying on polls, just be aware of exactly how they're monkeyed with, exactly what these people are doing, because what they're doing seems coordinated. What they're doing seems to be trying to silence the most popular, the most viewed leader on the stage. What they're doing doesn't seem very democratic to me. What I want is a free press that will report facts as facts and not report their feelings or cheerlead for a team that they want to win or give softball questions to some people, like not mentioning the blackface during the debate, but attacking Mr. Bernier for his stated positions and calling him hateful when he doesn't espouse hateful positions. These things are false, and they're stated in a way that makes it seem like they're true because they're coming from supposedly trustworthy people. But these people are not saying things that are true. So it's really, really interesting. From the pollsters to the journalists to the leaders themselves, right? The rhetoric is divisive and incorrect and working specifically to twist the words and push this ideology. And it's really concerning within our community or within our democracy. That's not, the ideas should win on their merits, not on the vilification of the other team. And that's what we're seeing by and large, right? The debate, their goal, they being Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau, and to a lesser extent Elizabeth May, was to paint Mr. Bernier as some racist. And Mr. Scheer is seen as a competitor to Mr. Bernier. But I think that ultimately Mr. Bernier and Mr. Scheer are going to have to work together to make sure that the country moves forward in a responsible way. So, with only less than a week to go, I say the polls are not something to rely upon when making your decision. I would say, listen to what the leaders say. Look at their record for the past year. Look at who they speak to and look at the promises they make. And then make up your mind. It's up to you. It's not up to me. That's the whole point. We live in a democracy. So I hope you take the time to chop through the garbage that these polls are and really have a look for yourself. Thanks for watching, everybody. Voting day is October 21st. That is less than a week away. Get out and vote. Have your say, and have a wonderful, wonderful